Are you amazed by his success?
No, not really. That sounds really bad, but it's true. Like he's just really different. One of his wonderful, wonderful traits is like his ability to just believe in what he's doing and what he can do. It's interesting because obviously there's a lot of really great athletes around and you see a lot of them, but you know, there's some that just have that ability to just be able to switch off everything else and believe in themselves and what you're saying to them.
Hey folks, before we start today's episode, a big shout out to Southern Slugs, Pete Oldfield and the gang there. They've got a wonderful event happening up there in Phuket in Thailand in December. That's a 5-day event. There's the over 35s, that's the men, the slugs, and the open age women's, which is the dingoes. So get involved in that. Go to the Southern Slugs Facebook page to find out more details, but it should be a lot of fun. Well, what an absolute pleasure it is to have Shelly Jarrett on Sports Legends with Bevo for the very first time.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so flattered to be asked.
It's great to have you, Shelly. Over 30 years of experience as a swimming coach. We'll get to your journey in a moment. But you were born in England, in London. How did you find yourself in South Australia? Tell us about this.
Well, I wasn't born in London. I was actually born in Germany.
Oh,
yeah, I know. I'm not German though. My dad was in the Royal Air Force. Yep. So that's probably why I've moved around a bit. So I was born there and then we obviously, when he was posted, we moved back to the UK. But I lived in London for the longest period of time anywhere in my life. So that's, you know, my journey really from the start is moving around and knowing that we lived in Cyprus for a while. We've lived sort of all over England. My dad's been to the Falkland Islands, the Shetland Islands. So we sort of moved around a fair bit. We didn't always get to go with him, but it's been a different kind of a life to what most people grow up with, I guess. So I guess that was where my love of travel came from, and the ability to just go somewhere different, I think probably came from him and my mum just sort of fending somewhere else. And I came to Adelaide in 2008. I got offered a job coaching. And
was that with the family as well?
No, just me.
Wow.
Just me, yeah. I took a leap of faith, and interestingly, people say to me, oh, that was like, what made you do that? But I just felt like it was something, it wasn't really a tough thing to do, because when you coach, the environment is the same essentially, just in somewhere else. So you jump sort of straight in. So I came and started coaching in South Australia.
That is so brave. Did you know anyone at all when you moved over?
No, I didn't. When I got here, there was somebody from the UK that had relocated a few years previously to me, and her son was swimming, and he actually was on a junior British program that I was part of. So when I arrived, they instantly remembered me and came over, and I remembered him because he was a very good youngster. He was amazing in South Australia as well. And so I connected with them, and I'm still friends with them to this day, actually. So
that's so incredible. I've absolutely got so much admiration for people that just take that big leap of faith and not knowing anyone. That's amazing stuff. And your swimming journey, you started coaching when you were 17.
Yes.
Tell us about the early days though of your swimming and going from, I'm always interested to hear how people start coaching, and especially going from like a competitive career as a swimmer to a coach. Tell us about that.
So I swam with a club called Beckenham, which is a southeast London club, and they were probably one of the best clubs in London at the time. There aren't loads of swimming clubs, but what I can tell you is that like swimming is really popular in the UK. So naturally population's huge there, but like my swim team that I ended up, a couple of teams in London, but we had 450 members, whereas like somewhere like Marion, where I've coached previously, only has 200 odd, so it's much bigger in terms of that. But my team was Beckenham, and I did an Olympic trials. Once I qualified for Olympic trials, but I was rotten. I wasn't good. I was so nervous and not good at all. But my mum was really proud that I made that, because she got to come and say she watched the Olympic trials. But that was probably my highest level. I made national age group finals, but again, nothing like crash hot. But I do understand now as a coach, that's not too bad, you know. But when you're working with people that go on to win Olympic Games and things, you sort of go, yeah, not the same thing, you know, just being a... and then I guess I started teaching whilst I was still studying. So I was teaching swimming. So you do like your education, like your courses through the governing body. So I did all of those and started teaching swimming, and I was doing lifeguarding, same sort of path as a lot of other people. And then I set up, so my ex-brother-in-law was an international athlete for the UK, and I used to swim with him at the same club. So we set up a swim school. So we were teaching swimming. He eventually decided that wasn't for him, and I continued doing that. And I did that for about 13 years. And I started coaching around about the same time, well, probably before, a little bit before. I had a swim team that I was sort of a secondary swimmer for. So you were allowed to belong to two clubs, essentially. You had one that was a priority team and one that was a secondary team. And the one that I swam the secondary team for, the coach got sick, and he knew that I was teaching and said, would you like to take some of our junior squads? And I said, yeah, why not? Like, I'll start doing it. And so I sort of ended up finishing competing and doing some coaching. And then he got really, really sick and came and said, could you do a bit more? And then it became a bit more, and then it became a bit more. And then I ended up being the head coach of that program in London. And I sort of have gone from there and never really got out of it from that point onwards.
And what were you studying when you first got into the swimming?
I was just doing my A-levels initially, and then I had planned to go to uni but never ended up going to uni because it became a full-time job, and once you start in those realms, it's really hard to then study and do everything. I wanted to do physio, to be honest, or something along those lines, or sports science based, and I just never got back to it. Just ended up just going on that journey of becoming a swimming coach. And when you get a fairly good athlete, I think that's what tends to happen. You sort of it's almost like you get sucked in and then you can never leave because you have to go on the journey with them.
Yes, and we'll speak in a moment about Adelaide's very own Kyle Chalmers, because you were with him in 2016. But you mentioned before about travelling the world, and that's one of your real passions is the travelling. What's been some of the highlights throughout your time?
I love Japan. We did it was a junior cup, youth cup with Kyle, and that was amazing. It was called like a youth Olympic-y type thing. It wasn't the Youth Olympics, but they called it like an mini Olympic type thing. So that was amazing. And we did that through Olympic Association. And so everything was really fancy, like something you wouldn't necessarily normally get. So we got to stay in an amazing hotel by the Rainbow Bridge, and it was state of the art, staying in the hotel and everything, transport. I mean, they treated us like we were like absolute, legends. And it was such a fun experience. We were a fairly small team, but there's some kids that were on that team that are in the Dolphins now as well. So
that must make you feel very proud.
Yes, yeah. It was really, they did stuff that was unheard of in Japan. They let us sit. This is like a big controversy for them. They let us sit on pool deck, which they don't generally do, but there we were, us little Australian group, they sat us on the pool deck. So all the Japanese people were like, what are these people doing? They're sitting on pool deck, no one else is allowed. And they did a big thing where they showcased us and we got introduced to the crowd, and I don't think I'll ever do anything like that ever again, but real fun and a real good thing for those young kids coming through as well to see what potentially that could be like. Fun, really fun. And the Japanese really treated us amazingly well.
And what's it like being at an Olympics? I mean, I've spoken to Kyle and many other Olympians, past and present, and they've talked about their own experiences as athletes. What's it like, though, being a coach at the Olympics?
I didn't get to go.
Oh, you didn't get to go?
I didn't get to go.
Even as a coach?
So upsetting. No, I didn't get to go. So at the time, I got measured for the uniform and everything. And then Peter Bishop and I were sharing him at the time, and Bish didn't get to go either. So we were both back home watching on the big screen, being filmed, watching. So I was sad. I mean, I I was lucky enough to walk around London during the London Olympics because I had a Paralympian. So I was lucky enough to do a bit of that. So, but I didn't get to go to Rio. I have been to Rio at another swim meet.
Yeah, but not the actual Olympics.
But not the actual Olympics, which was sad. But, you know, hey, it's just one of those things.
And you're involved as well with the British swimming team. How'd that come about? Was that through that journey you talked about before with the 13 years?
So there was an Australian gentleman called Bill Sweetenham, who some people may or may not know. He was like head coach of Great Britain. He came over from Australia. He was a pretty tough, strong character. And I had some junior swimmers on programs, and I was at it was like a junior incentive, like they pick out the best athletes and you can go and look. And I remember I had a couple of athletes that were picked out, and I went and I sat and watched, and I watched all these other coaches around on the deck, and I remember sitting there thinking, oh, like I wish I could be one of those coaches. And so I happened to ask somebody who was really famous in the UK. It was a man called Terry Dennison, and he coached Adrian Morehouse, who was Olympic gold medalist breaststroker. And I remember he walked past, and I was just like, right, I'm just going to say. And I said, oh, excuse me, Terry. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I said, oh, like, what do we do to be like one of the coaches on the deck? Like, how do we know what the kids in the water are doing? And he was like, hold on a minute. And then he went off and came back and said, oh, we're struggling for people tomorrow. Like, would you like to come on deck? And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like, yeah, I'd love to. And he's like, you've got a couple of kids, haven't you? And I was like, yeah, I have. And that really was how it all started. And Bill came into that camp, and I can remember he came over and he said, how are you doing, coach? What are you up to? And I was like, oh, I'm just helping out. And he's like, no, you're not just helping out, you're doing important work. And the rest is history, really. He became a huge fan, and he came to my wedding. He's changed the landscape for British swimming totally. And a lot of their success after that point came from his change of structure, change of, culture. And I credit him a lot of my success goes to Bill. He's been such a huge supporter of mine. And I'm sort of like, I still go to him now as a mentor. If I'm having some moments of like, oh, what do I do here? What do I do there? I go and have a chat with him. So that's really how I started in with that sort of stuff. And then I went on the journey with those athletes along for the ride, really.
What's been some of your real success stories from the UK swimming side of things?
So I've had, probably my biggest success story was a young man who went to World Juniors and won several medals at World Juniors. We went to Rio, and he went on to represent Britain at senior level. We did Europeans. He actually won European Junior Championships, broke the European Junior records. He was an amazing athlete, actually. And then he went to, I think he was at Com Games here in the Gold Coast just recently, when last Com Games that was here. He represented Wales, in fact. But he, interesting lad, his dad's from Trinidad and Tobago and his mum's from Italy, and then he's swimming for Britain, and well, yeah, like really interesting. But he was an amazing athlete, actually, really amazing. Went over and did some stuff in the States, but yeah, he was probably the best one. I had some good girls too, but, they were in that level, that higher level. But yeah, he was probably my best one. And
when did you first get to meet Kyle, and how did that come about?
I think Kyle was always a really good age grouper in South Australia, so he always won state championships. I remember one of my first memories of Kyle was we went to China up in Brisbane for national age championships. Well, 2012 maybe? 2012. And he won lots of medals. And I remember he did so many different events, and I remember he didn't do a 200 medley, I think it was at the time. And he was with another friend of mine, Sean, who was coaching him out of Norwood. And he won loads of stuff. And so he was always on the radar. And then we used to do a thing, they've stopped doing it now, called state teams. So all the state teams compete. It's a junior meet, and we all go up to the AIS and compete against one another. And I remember going up to state teams, and he was on the state teams team, and I got to sit next to him on the airplane on the way home. And I just knew that he would end up coming and joining the club. And I don't know, it wasn't like anything specific, but you get a good sense of someone, and I felt like I had a good sense of who he was, and it was sort of good conversation. I mean, he was only young. I mean, he would have been 14 maybe, I don't know, but he was a nice kid, you know, and showed genuine, you know, interest, and we had a bit of a chat. And I remember getting off the flight saying, I think he's going to come. And I reckon I said to Peter Bishop, because Peter Bishop used to be at Norwood, and I remember saying to Peter Bishop, I think he'll come. I think Kyle's going to end up coming. And then he did. Yeah, not long after, he came over and joined our club, because Bish left there and came to Marion, and we set up Marion, essentially. Oh. We set up what's now known as Marion, because it wasn't there originally. It was like it was just a sort of little local club, really.
Yes.
And then when the centre opened, we sort of redid the whole thing.
And now look at it. It's unbelievable, isn't it? The amount of success stories.
Club. Yeah, it's the best club in South Australia, for sure. So.
2016 Rio, obviously Kyle just absolutely blew everyone's minds with how successful he was at Rio, and must have made you so proud watching. And we're talking off air though, you just had a feling that he was going to get that gold medal, didn't you? Yeah,
I did. He did this little thing where he bashed his chest, and I'd seen him do that before, and I always knew that meant that he felt good. And I'd say to him, go bash that chest, you know, go, you know, straight stuff. Like I used to say to him, go be a peacock, like, because sprinters are sort of, you know, and he wasn't that way in terms of mentally. He was never like arrogant, but definitely I just had that sense when I saw him come out, like when they come out the walkway, like, and he just did this thing, and I was like, oh. And I did say to my husband, I think he's going to win. I feel like he's going to win. And my husband was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I feel like he's going to win. I don't know why. And then he turned, and then obviously he was so far behind, but I just knew that he would get on the wall. Like, that's his best asset, like coming home. And we had always spoken about how does he want to be remembered. Myself and Bish had said to him at an early moment that what do you want? You want to be remembered to be the fastest man on the second 50. And we had done that from the get-go. So it was always about like, you know, can you be the fastest man to come home? And that's what we had worked on. Like we had like James Magnuson's times on the second 50. We had Cam McAvoy's times on the second 50, and we had the Russian guy on this. Like we had those stats, and I gave them to him, and we're like, right, you need to be as fast as that. Like you have to be faster than them on that second 50 in order to be the fastest. And interesting fun fact, I don't know if it's interesting, but at the Olympic Games, all the people that won the 100 metres were the fastest on the second 50. And all the events, for male and female, I think.
That's phenomenal, isn't it?
From recollection. I hope that's right. But yeah, I think so.
So you set a precedent there. So.
Yeah, so they were all, you know, but which is quite unusual, you know, but that's the way. And if you look at swimming now, a lot of swimming is swum more that way. People are coming home, you know, like to be better than Kyle, you just got to be just a little bit quicker on the first 50 because they know he's coming. Like they all know he's coming.
Not an easy thing to do.
Huh?
That's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not, because like there's a lot of technique and stuff training that goes into that
conserving
kind of stuff.
Energy as well. To be
and you know, like as a coach, you know if they're too hard, like you can never be too fast. This is something Bish always used to say. We used to say this to all of the swimmers. You can never be too fast, but you can be too hard. So if you're overworking, you know, like it's going to be hard to come home.
Are you amazed by his success?
No, not really. That sounds really bad, but it's true. Like he's just really different. One of his wonderful, wonderful traits is like his ability to just believe in what he's doing and what he can do. And it's interesting because obviously there's a lot of really great athletes around and you see a lot of them, but you know, there's some that just have that ability to just be able to switch off everything else and believe in themselves and what you're saying to them. I feel like Ariane Titmus is like that too. Like I did a few camps with her early days when she was young, and she had that same sense of belief. And you don't see it with everybody, but like they just have that innate faith in themselves. And it's an amazing thing to watch as well, because they just are unaware that there's anything else.
That competitive nature without being arrogant.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he definitely is that way. Yeah. He just wants to win.
But he's so down to earth. Yeah, it's awesome.
So, yeah, he's lovely. He's really, really lovely. And Like, I'm so proud of him, you know, because he's a man now. He's not like that little kid anyway. He was never little, was he?
The man with lots of tats.
Yeah, so he was never little. He's always been like, you know, big for his age and everything. But technically as well, I need to say that he's a fantastic athlete. Like the feel he has on the water and how like technically gifted he is and what he does, that's what makes him fast too. It's not just about having that competitive edge. I mean, that gets him to win, but for sure, technically he's really gifted.
There's a lot of talk about him, if he wasn't a swimmer, that he could have been an AFL footballer as well, like his dad, Brett. So
yes.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see. I know he goes out and has a kick even now up in Port Lincoln, but it would be
I
funny.
saw that.
Yes.
I know. I was like, don't hurt yourself. He's hurt himself before, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Like before 2015 World Champs, he actually did have a go and he hurt himself right before World Champs. I know. He rang me from the hospital and I was like, what have you done? And he was like, you know, hurt myself. And I was like, oh no. So we had to do some managing around that. But he got in and swam he was the fastest man in the relay team.
Crazy, isn't
in
it?
Russia. Yeah, so, you know.
Speaking of crazy, I've got an interesting thing to talk to you about with Kyle. World Junior Games, Singapore. What's this about roaming the streets at 3 a.m?
Kyle told you that, didn't he? Yeah.
I can't tell my source.
I think back now and I think, gosh, I'm not sure if we would necessarily be okay to be doing that now. But I think, so he really struggled with sleep, really, really struggled with sleep. And before we got there was an awful lot of press around World Juniors. And obviously he was ranked pretty highly and it was his first really, really big, you know, junior meet for Australia. And we had done a few bits and pieces, but nothing quite as important as World Juniors. And so there was another guy that's still swimming for America, a guy called Michael Andrew. And there was this big sort of like Michael versus Kyle. And I remember when this kid walked in and we were like, oh, there he is, you know, it's Michael Andrew. And so there was a lot of pressure, I think. And he really struggled to sleep. So I said to him, look, anytime you want, just message me. And so he messaged me and I said to him, how about we go for a wander? You know, just take your mind off it and we'll go for a wander around. And Singapore's really well lit. And it's really, like where we stayed was a really sort of open area. And I said, how about we go, I mean, it was hot. Let me tell you, it was really hot and steamy, but like, how about we go for a walk around the block and we just see how that makes you feel, you know, will it calm you down? And he was like, do you think that's okay? And I said, yeah, of course it's fine. Like, we'll just go for a walk. And there's security and stuff all around. Like I said, it was super well lit. And we just had a chat and we walked all the way around. I can't even remember what I was wearing and everything. Like, it's a really weird thing. And we just chatted about lots. And then we got back to the reception and he was like, I still don't feel like I could sleep. So I brought up some basketball clips because he loved basketball, like massive, like Durant fan and all that sort of stuff. So I brought up some motivational. I had an iPad, I think, and I brought it up and I put some videos on. And so we just sat in reception, like it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, so there was no one else around. So we just sat watching the motivational videos. And then I remember he went, I reckon it was about 4 o'clock. He went, I think I might be all right now. I think I'm tired. I think I should go to bed. And I went to him, okay, cool. Yeah, I'll see you in the morning. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to get to bed. I'm so tired. Like, I'm so tired. And then he went on to do really good things and won all these races and, you know, it was brilliant. To be honest, he was brilliant. So
it's amazing with that lack of sleep, isn't it, as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he just has that ability though to overcome. Like I said, he was, you know, injured his foot and his wrist and still did brilliantly at Worlds, like actual Worlds, and that was just before that meet. So he still had some of that lingering. He had a bit of a back twinge as well at that time as well. He just had that ability to just override it, you know. I mean, It gets harder as you get older because you probably have a bit more of an understanding of what injuries mean. But he just, at that point, he was really like, just, oh, I'll be fine.
I can just tell how proud you are. It's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been really lovely. Like, I feel blessed that I was able to do those things. Really fortunate that, you know, I got to work with him for the time that I did. And, you know, they are almost like, I always say they're your children in many ways when you coach, because they come into your life, you look after them for a little while, you take good care of them, and then you have to let them go, which is the same as having your own kids, really, essentially.
And what do you think are the keys to being a good coach that's made you so successful over the years?
Oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if you should ask some of my swimmers that thing. But I genuinely care. I really do care, and I want them to feel a sense of that. And I don't know, I think being caring is really important. Like, nurturing is really important. I feel like, you know, I don't know if that's a female thing. Some say it is. But I always wanted them to know that I cared about what I did, and I wanted them to enjoy it. And I wanted them to be able to come to me if they had some stressful moments or they couldn't quite manage, or, you know, like, I wanted to be that person for them. It was really important because, like, my thing that I always said to all of my athletes for years over was a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer, you know. So when they're happier, anything we can do to try and help with that. I mean, there's obviously tough talks sometimes and, you know, those sort of things. But for the most part, like, they're human beings that need to be looked after, aren't they?
And having those relationships, the positive relationships, and knowing, like you said before, if you've got to give them a kick up the bum, well, you've got to do that as well.
And Peter Bishop really helped me with that sort of stuff. Like, he was like, you know, we want them to have the best experience and take good care of them, you know, like, it's really important that they can trust us. And I think, like, he's somebody who's really good at doing that too. And
I'm glad you mentioned Peter, because his success, you know, is phenomenal as well, with the amount of athletes over the years that he's been involved with. So I caught up with him last week, actually. I've heard he's a real character as well, from what Kyle's told me. So
I can't divulge any secrets.
Speaking of characters, we talked about off air about this. You actually know Dean Boxall, Ariana Titmus's coach, and you're involved with, like, an amazing race type of thing. Explain more about this.
Oh my God, yeah, that was a little while ago. We it was, I think there was Junior Pan Pacs was going on, and we had Youth Olympics in China. And I was part of the Youth Olympics group with Kyle, and I had another young lady called Ella. So a big shout out to Ella, because she was a fantastic athlete. And we got put in teams. There was loads of us, but I reckon there was about 5 or 6 teams, and there was about 6 or 7 athletes in each team, and then 2 or 3 coaches. And I had myself, Dino, and Tracy Menzies, who was Ian Thorpe's coach, and we had to do these clues. And Dino lives in Brisbane, around that way. So he had us running full bore, like sprinting for 2 hours straight from pillar to post to get these, like, clues. And I will say we did win. And I will say it was a big thank you to Dino. Like, there's no doubt about it in my mind. We would not have won if it wasn't for him knowing everything about Brisbane. I knew nothing. I was just running. And I would say I don't think I've ever run as fast ever again.
Why does that not surprise you with what you say when he's like on the team?
He is high energy, Dino. Definitely high energy. So good on him. He enjoys it.
And 2015, you were named as the Sassy Coach of the Year. What does this mean to you, Shelly?
Well, it was like I didn't even know, like, I was going to get it. And I remember, I'll tell you something really funny about that night. I didn't want to go. Truthfully didn't want to go because I had to be up at 4 the next morning to go to work. So, and the lovely support staff, I wasn't even on the table. So when I arrived, my name wasn't even on the, like, seating sheets. I wasn't. So I said to one of the ladies, it's Sassy, I went to her, I'm not even on the table. Can I just go? And she said, no, you can't go. And I said to her, it doesn't matter. I'm not even on the seating plan. She was like, what do you mean? And I said, look, I'm not on the seat. So she came over and she's like, oh, well, that's a mistake. And I'm like, no, it's fine. I can just go. I need to get up for work. And she's like, no, you can't go. Anyway, I'm like, oh.
Did you start having a bit of an idea then?
Well, because I had to go and collect an award for Kyle. Because he wasn't, I don't know where he was, but he wasn't there. And so I went, oh. And she said, you can't go because you've got to collect Kyle's trophy, like his award. And I was like, oh, okay. Anyway, so it got to like 9:30. And then they had a break. And I was like, I'm meant to be in bed. I'm not in bed at 8. And so I went to the toilet and I bumped into the same lady again and said to her, look, I'm going to go. I think I'm so tired. And she's like, no, we've only got a few awards left. And I was like, oh, I can't. Anyway, I went back out. And lo and behold, they announced it. And I think I sat in my seat because I was like, they're not talking to me. Like, they can't be talking to me. And I think it was Mark Soderstrom that gave me the award. I'm pretty sure it was him, and I had never met him before. And so that was pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
And like I got up on stage and I was like, what happened? So I still don't know to this day what happened, but I was very like amazing. I didn't expect it at all. So it was very, very amazing. And I think one of the most like, I was so grateful that they even thought about me, to be honest. You know, there's so many people they could have had, and it's just, you know, crazy. That was crazy.
So well deserved.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thanks very much. I still don't feel like that. I'm like, oh, that's strange, you know, but really lovely. And it, you know, it all came from Cara, really.
Yeah, what a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just finally, at the moment, you're involved with Swimming Australia as a coaching educator. Explain more about that role, Shelly, and what else you're up to these days.
So I coach people to be coaches, basically. So we run different components of learning. I do so the lower level, I do face-to-face. So we run like day courses. And then at the higher level, it's components of learning. So it's all different components. We have different levels, obviously. So I do lots of those. I think things are just about to start to change though. So we might be going, the Coaches Association used to do the coach education and then it went to Swimming Australia, and now I think it may be heading back. I'm not sure about that, but I'm hoping that I'm still going to be heavily involved because I get to do that. And it's a great way of connecting with other coaches too. So, and I love doing it too. And it does really help you relearn your trade almost as well. And there's always something different you pick up from somebody else as well, like by questions and stuff like that. So it's really fun to be in a different light, I guess, sharing experiences. And it's not until you are in that mode that you realise how much you've learned, which is interesting because it's very much go, 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 go when you're a coach. It's all about the next thing, you know, so you're very much on that sort of treadmill, just keeping going. So like when I do that stuff, it's really nice to be reflective and think about, you know, what do I know? What can I share? And how can I learn as well?
So going forward for the rest of your career, you'd like to sort of do one-on-one mentoring as well as it sounds like something you're passionate about, or?
Yes, I am passionate about it. I am part of a coach mentor program at the moment through the AIS, but I'm not a mentor. I'm being mentored by a lovely lady that's actually, she won Rowing Coach of the Year, a female, and she is such a huge inspiration. She's been to 2 Olympic Games, I think, several World Championships, and many people. She's actually at Worlds right now. And so I connect with her regularly, and we have like these virtual cafes with all the other mentees. So that's been amazing being a part of that program. And I think things like that are things that keep us going, you know, and you learn more about how to be, and you know, they just give you good advice and set out programming and structure with planning and things like that. So it's been really useful. The other thing I'm doing, I'm just about to start coaching a former Paralympian. She's a 2-time Paralympian, and she's just come back and said she's had some changes physically, but she said she'd like to go swimming again, and she's jumped in the pool again. So I'm back on that journey with her, which is lovely. And she's sort of like hoping to go to Worlds and Paralympics again. So Esther Overton is her name, so I look out for her.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's going to be really nice.
How do you fit all this in?
I know. Well, I know, this is it. I sort of like thought maybe when I sort of took a step back from being on deck so much that like I would probably be less busy, but I'm actually probably more busy now. And I have a young child too, so they keep you busy. But you know, I'm better being busy. I always figure I'm better doing stuff rather than not doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Shelly Jarrett, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on Sports Legends with Bevo. Thanks so much to Andy, our mutual friend from the Ozcast Network.
Thanks,
Andy Martin, for hooking us up. That was very nice of him. And of course, the team at Pod Booth always looking after us as well, doing a great job. And thanks to the Southern Slugs for sponsoring this episode as well and their support. Shelly, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me on. I feel really like flattered and blessed that you had me on. And it's a lovely thing to remember all that stuff, which you don't do very often. So thank you.